Okay, I think we are just about ready to start. Hopefully everyone who wants to be here is here. If not, hopefully they will be joining soon. So hello and welcome, and thank you for joining our second webinar on the Windsor Framework webinar for medicines. I'm Luke Newman, our partnership specialist here at the agency, and I will be introducing this webinar and chairing the question and answer session later. Can we get the next slide, please? So as you can see, we have a busy agenda. This webinar will focus on new areas of guidance that we will be publishing, including pediatrics and advertising and promotions, as well as touching upon some areas where we had a range of questions from the last webinar, including on distribution and manufacturing. This action-packed webinar will last 90 minutes. Following the presentation, there will be time for a question and answer session. In order to contribute to that session, we are taking questions on Slido only. So any questions posted on the Zoom chat will not be addressed. You can submit questions on Slido at any point throughout the session. Please do be mindful that this session will be recorded. So if any of your colleagues missed out, they can catch this webinar on repeat on the MHRA website. The recording of our first webinar is now available on the MHRA website and will be sent out to participants of this webinar tomorrow. So can we get the next slide, please? Thank you. So moving on from the practicalities today, we are all looking forward to more than Christmas or New Year's Eve, the Windsor Framework implementation date. From the 1st of January 2025, the Windsor Framework will ensure that patients in Northern Ireland are able to access medicines in the same packs and same labels as the rest of the UK, enabling the MHRA to license all medicines on the market in Northern Ireland. It also disapplies the EU's Falsified Medicines Directive for Northern Ireland, bringing Northern Ireland in line with the rest of the UK. A key change which industry needs to be prepared for is that all labelling must carry a UK-only label. If you have not already, it is vital that you submit revised artwork as soon as possible to the MHRA. Any packs that are released by the 31st of December 2024 can still remain on the market until their expiry. As part of the implementation of the Windsor Framework, the UK needs to provide assurances to the EU, and we are in discussion with the EU as we prepare for the implementation date. So next slide, please. So as you can see from the slide, we have published a range of guidance already in advance of the Windsor Framework implementation date. Changes to guidance on UK-wide licensing, labelling, and packaging, as well as pharmacovigilance, for example, were all addressed in the previous Windsor Framework webinar. So it is worth watching the first webinar recording if you have any questions on those areas. We will not be addressing these areas of guidance within this webinar. So if you have watched the first webinar, read the guidance, and you still have questions, I will provide details of how you can pose these questions to us at the end of my presentation. The questions that you raised in the first webinar are being used to develop further Q&As and to inform updates to existing guidance and future communications, which we will publish on gov.uk. We will be doing the same again today with any questions that you submit. Next slide, please. Later this year, there are a few more areas of guidance that we will be publishing, which includes advertising and promotions, updates to existing guidance on licensing and new applications, and pediatrics. For any new areas of guidance, the collections page, which you can see at the bottom of this slide, is the best place to find them. So next slide, please. So as the first webinar sold out quicker than Glastonbury and therefore required us to upgrade our platform so that we can handle a higher number of attendees, that does mean we are likely to receive more questions than we are able to answer in this webinar via Slido. We will try and address as many as possible. For those who have pre-submitted questions, we have aimed to address these within today's presentations. Any questions that we are not able to answer today will be taken away, and as already mentioned, will be used to inform updates to existing guidance or the development of additional question and answers, which we will publish on gov.uk. Next slide, please. So in the interest of addressing some of the questions from the previous webinar, I will now pass over to Shirley Hopper and Liz Baker to talk through further details in UK-wide licensing.
Thank you very much, Luke. So my name is Shirley Hopper and I'm Deputy Director of National Licensing Strategy. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to go over some of the key points for UK-wide licensing, and these points are covered in our guidance on UK-wide licensing for medicines. So from the 1st of January, all medicines will be licensed on a UK-wide basis. And this is irrespective of route. So this includes direct national applications, but also international recognition and Project Orbis and access procedures. There will be an automatic conversion of existing Great Britain marketing authorisations and pending applications to UK-wide on the 1st of January. And after the 1st of January, it won't be possible to apply for a Great Britain only marketing authorisation. So this also means that centrally authorised products, i.e. EU approved products, will no longer be valid in Northern Ireland. So that includes existing centralised products and those that are pending and future applications. So UK medicinal products that are outside the scope of the EU centralised procedure are not impacted by the Windsor Framework. These products will be authorised in accordance with UK law and also applicable EU law on a UK-wide basis, as is the case currently. So the marketing authorisation number PLGB prefix will be retained for existing marketing authorisations that have it, and also any pending marketing authorisation applications with a PLGB prefix currently. So from the 1st of December, the PL prefix can be requested via the Human Medicines Portal for new applications. However, if these marketing authorisations would currently be limited to Great Britain, we won't be able to grant with a PL prefix before the 1st of January 2025. Next slide, please. So this table is also provided in the UK-wide licensing guidance, and it just goes through the criteria for Category 1 and Category 2 products under the Windsor Framework. So Category 1 products are going to be authorised by the MHRA in accordance with UK law on a UK-wide basis. And Category 2 products will be authorised by the MHRA in accordance with UK law and applicable EU law on a UK-wide basis. So Category 1 is authorised products that were in the EU, were authorised in the EU through the centralised procedure and subsequently grandfathered. Also authorised products within the mandatory scope of the centralised procedure that MHRA has authorised since the 1st of January 21. And also authorised products within the optional scope of the centralised procedure authorised by us since 1st of January 21, unless they were authorised in the EU through national procedures, including MRP, DCP. So for new applications, Category 1 will be those that fall within the mandatory or optional scope of the centralised procedure. And this will include products which are conditional marketing authorisations. Also, generic, hybrid or biosimilar products of Category 1 reference products will also be Category 1. And this is regardless of whether the centralised procedure was used for the generic, hybrid or biosimilar application. So moving on to Category 2, these are the products that don't fall within the mandatory scope of the centralised procedure, or those that in the case of the optional scope were authorised through national procedures, or products that were authorised prior to the introduction of the centralised procedure. So for new applications, this is products that do not fall within Category 1, So this is products that do not fall within the mandatory or optional scope of the centralised procedure. So that means this also won't include products that are authorised as conditional marketing authorisations. And also the generic, hybrid or biosimilar products of category 2 reference products will also be category 2. Next slide, please. So the MHRA will publish a list of products by category that have been authorised until and including the 13th of August 2024. Subsequently, an updated list will be published of products approved until 31st of December 2024. Marketing authorisation holders will not be notified individually of their product categorisation. From late October, applicants will be asked to select the product category when submitting via the Human Medicines portal. There will be additional portal guidance, including a decision tree that will help you to select the product category for your new medicines authorisation application. And you can also refer to the UK-wide licensing guidance. The category will be checked by the MHRA during the procedure, and where necessary, the category will be corrected. And you should bear in mind that certain product types are not categorised because they do not fall within the scope of the Windsor Framework, including Northern Ireland only marketing authorisations within the MRP or DCP, but also traditional herbal registrations and homeopathic registrations through the simplified scheme. So in the portal, you will have the option to indicate not applicable. And just to reassure you that although we would like you to choose the appropriate category using the guidance provided, an incorrect categorisation will not lead to invalidation. Next slide, please. So we've had a number of questions coming through on managing differences in product information between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. So what we're talking about here is differences in product information between the Great Britain marketing authorisation, which is due to become UK-wide on the 1st of January, and the corresponding EU marketing authorisation. And these should be managed depending on the situation. So we are not expecting marketing authorisation holders to align the EU marketing authorisation, which is currently valid in Northern Ireland, and the GB marketing authorisation prior to the 1st of January 2025. You know, we understand that there may be some differences, both scientific and technical, but also administrative. So when considering that there may need to be updates to internal documents, processes and systems following on from the 1st of January expansion of the GB SMPC to UK-wide, the MHRA will take a pragmatic approach and allow a reasonable time for these changes to be made. So, for example, you know, in the event of any inspections, that there would be a pragmatic approach to compliance in this case. So we only need MA holders to communicate differences between the GB and the EU product information, where this results in a change of clinical practice for healthcare professionals in Northern Ireland, which affects patient safety. And the current advice for when a DHPC is needed should be followed. Now, there may be safety information which has already been included in the EU marketing authorisation, which also needs to be included in the GB to be UK-wide MA. And this safety information should be included via the usual variation process. and implemented within the standard 3 to 6 months timeline. If you need any advice on managing the situation on a case-by-case basis, then please contact safetyprojects@mhra.gov.uk. Next slide, please. So we have been updating a number of licensing guidance in line with the Windsor Framework, and I just want to highlight 3 here. So all orphan drugs will be category 1 because these come under the mandatory scope of the centralised procedure. The way that we handle orphan drugs in the UK will not be changing. The criteria, procedures and processes are essentially unchanged. And we have updated our guidance on orphan medicinal products to reflect that this is now UK-wide. In addition, all advanced therapy medicinal products will be category 1 because they come under the mandatory scope of the centralised procedure. And the definitions and requirements are unchanged. And there was only minor updates to the ATMP regulation and also the licensing guidance, and this will be published soon. So we expect that most biosimilars will be category 1, in line with the reference medicinal product. And a UK reference medicinal product is now required, and this must be used for the comprehensive physicochemical and biological comparability studies, including in vitro analysis. However, it may be possible to use a different reference product in the clinical trials. This would need to be authorised in and sourced from a country with similar scientific and regulatory standards to the UK. And it would also be the applicant's responsibility to demonstrate that the reference product is representative of the reference medicinal product in the UK using robust analytical bridging data. It should be noted that as currently, we don't always require comparative efficacy and safety data for biosimilar applications in the UK if there is an adequate comparative pharmacokinetic study. We're also changing our landing page for biosimilars, ATMPs, and plasma master files. So currently there's a combined landing page for these product types. This will be changed to a page for plasma master files only, and the biosimilar and the ATMP guidance will all be found in a single site to simplify matters. Next slide, please. So I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Liz Baker. Thank you.
Lovely, thanks, Shirley. Yes, I'm Liz Baker, and I'm working with Shirley in the National Licensing Strategy team. I'm going to talk about a few of the sort of nitty-gritty practical aspects of the applications going forwards. First of all, reference medicinal products. We have some guidance on reference medicinal products, but as Shirley has just outlined, there is some more specific guidance on reference products for biosimilars, so just do bear that in mind. So if you were able to attend the first webinar, you'll know that we did actually cover RMPs, but we've got a little bit more detail here. So from the 1st of January, a UK reference medicinal product will be needed in all cases of UK-wide marketing authorisation applications for generic, hybrid and biosimilar applications. European reference products will not be acceptable for new applications from the 1st of January. However, any pending applications that refer to an ERP can continue, and they will be progressed on that basis. The data and market exclusivity periods will be those applicable in the UK. For any grandfathered EU marketing authorisations, we will obviously respect the start dates for data and market exclusivity that were established at the time of EU authorisation. So ERPs will continue to be acceptable for Northern Ireland only marketing authorisation applications submitted via MRDC. And that is the only situation where we will accept an ERP. And obviously in those cases, the EU DME start dates will apply. Now, we've had quite a number of questions about handling reference medicinal products. So these next few points really are in response to those. So if there is no UK reference product, because the active substance has never been authorised in the UK, then the application will be classified as a new active substance. That's actually no different from the situation now. So as it is now, even if there is a product authorised in Europe, if it is new to the UK, then we still class it as a new active substance. Cancelled UK-wide MAs can be used as reference medicinal products. Union authorisations, and by that I mean centrally authorised product authorisations that were not grandfathered at the time of EU exit, can't be used as reference medicinal products going forward. And all of these arrangements apply to applications, whether they are made directly as a direct national application or through the international recognition procedure. And our IRP guidance already explains requirements for RMPs there and will be updated accordingly. And these requirements importantly apply to both Category 1 and Category 2 products. So for all of those products, a UK reference product is needed. Next slide, please. So coming on to comparator products now that are used in bioequivalence and therapeutic equivalence testing. The comparator product used in those tests does not have to be the UK reference medicinal product sourced from the UK market, but the product used must be representative of the UK reference product. We already have specific guidance on how to demonstrate this with comparative data or with information that has been obtained directly from the MA holder of the reference product. And we've published that. At the moment, it applies to Great Britain only applications, but from the 1st of January, this will apply UK-wide. And again, the same requirements will apply to applications made under the international recognition procedure. The same requirements will also apply to both Windsor Framework Category 1 and Category 2 products. Now, if that comparative data or the required information is not available, then an alternative legal basis will be needed for the submission. Again, that is not new, that is the case now. So in those cases, we would expect either an application under well-established use, Regulation 54 of the Human Medicines Regulations, or a mixed dossier under Regulation 50 of the Human Medicines Regulations. And to note that for the Northern Ireland only applications, the EU requirements will continue to apply after 1st of January. Next slide, please. So coming on now to applications and authorisations for Northern Ireland only MAs. From the 1st of January, Northern Ireland only applications will only be accepted as part of an MRP DCP procedure. As I've already said, an NI only application is the only situation where a European reference product is permitted. If the marketing authorisation holder of a Northern Ireland authorisation subsequently seeks a UK-wide authorisation, then the Northern Ireland authorisation must be cancelled before grant of the UK-wide authorisation. For the applications, the MA holder can be established anywhere in the UK, but to subsequently use a Northern Ireland marketing authorisation as the basis of a UK-wide application under the unfettered access procedure, which was introduced at the time of EU exit, then the marketing authorisation holder must be established in Northern Ireland, and there is specific guidance available on using unfettered access. Northern Ireland only and GB only products cannot exist, or authorisations rather, cannot exist for the same product after the 1st of January. At the moment, as you know, you can have a PLNI and a PLGB, which together cover the whole of the UK. That can't happen after the 1st of January, because all of the PLGB authorisations will automatically convert to UK-wide authorisations. So to enable automatic conversion of the GB marketing authorisation to a UK-wide authorisation, the marketing authorisation holder must contact the reference member state to withdraw Northern Ireland from the European procedures, and secondly, request cancellation of the Northern Ireland authorisation by the MHRA to take effect on the 31st of December 2024. And obviously we will coordinate the cancellation of that Northern Ireland authorisation and the automatic conversion to a UK-wide authorisation. We've already written to all holders and applicants with Northern Ireland only applications and authorisations to explain that they need to make a decision and to explain the options open to them. So if you are one of those companies and you have not already responded to our communication, please action it as soon as possible. Because if the Northern Ireland authorisation is not cancelled on the 31st of December, then if you have a corresponding GB authorisation, it will be cancelled by the MHRA and you'll be left only with authorisation for Northern Ireland. Again, this is explained in our UK-wide licensing guidance, but if you do have any queries about this procedure, then please contact our customer services desk. Next slide, please. So a word about decentralised and mutual recognition procedures. Since exit of the UK from the European Union, it has not been possible to apply for a UK-wide marketing authorisation through the European MR or DC procedures. However, products with a UK-wide MA, and these will have a PL prefix, that were already authorised through MRDC at the time of EU exit, and where the MA holder decided to continue with Northern Ireland as a concerned member state in those procedures, the arrangement was that they could be managed in alignment with the European procedure unless the MHRA requests UK-specific changes. And that arrangement will continue unless there are issues that arise where the EU and UK requirements are not able to be aligned. So where an MA holder holds or has a pending Northern Ireland only MA, this can be maintained in that procedure, but the PLNI, as I've just explained, must be cancelled in the event of a future application for a UK-wide MA. Next slide, please. So, combinations of medicinal products and medical devices. The Windsor Framework arrangements for medicines do not impact the EU medical device regulations. Therefore, current EU regulatory requirements will continue to apply to medical devices, including combinations of medicinal products and medical devices. Consequently, for separate medical devices, including those which are either co-packaged with a medicinal product, referenced in the SMPC of a medicinal product, or they are companion diagnostics, because those are physically separate medical devices, they will continue to require a fixing of a CE mark in line with EU medical device regulations. And that is the situation now, and that won't change in January. Of course, we also have integral combinations of medicines and medical devices. Medicinal products with an integral medical device component which are regulated and authorised as medicines, if they are authorised as Windsor Framework Category 2 products, they will continue to require a notified body opinion as now. And this is because the Category 2 products still need to comply with applicable UK law, EU law, apologies. Arrangements for integral combinations regulated and authorised as Windsor Framework Category 1 medicinal products, which Shirley has explained are covered and regulated by UK law. We will be publishing arrangements for the procedures for those very shortly. But I can reassure you that if you have notified body opinions or you have arranged for notified body opinions for those products, they will continue to be accepted. And that is the end of my slides. I'll hand back to Shirley to talk about paediatrics.
Thank you, Liz. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've been working hard to update the paediatric guidances in line with the Windsor Framework. But I just wanted to just go over the UK paediatric requirements, most of which are unchanged from the current situation. So all MHRA regulatory submissions, so that could be a new MA application or variation, which trigger paediatric requirements, must have an agreed or adopted UK paediatric investigation plan and the relevant MHRA compliance checks, or a full product-specific waiver or MHRA confirmation of a class waiver. So this requirement is irrespective of regulatory route, so whether it's direct national or access or Project Orbis, or even if it's an international recognition procedure, MA application or variation. The UK paediatric requirements and the documents that need to be submitted with the regulatory submission will be as I have outlined. So applicants must include the latest MHRA decision documents and the MHRA compliance check outcomes if applicable to ensure validation of your regulatory submission. And paediatric plans from other regulators cannot be used to validate a UK regulatory submission. So for Category 2 products that are subject to paediatric requirements, a European Union agreed PIP must also be in place unless a waiver is granted. Next slide, please. So there's three main guidances that are being updated and will be published shortly. There's the procedures for UK paediatric investigation plans. Then there's the format and content of applications for agreed or modification of a PIP. And then there's also the guidance on completed paediatric studies, how to submit, and the processing and assessment of those. So the updates to these guidances will reflect the implementation of the Windsor Framework, but also some other changes to the assessment procedure for certain paediatric applications. There'll also be some alignment of the guidance with current practice, and also taking account of review of company queries. So really this is an update that was already planned to reflect experience over the past 3 years since EU exit. Next slide, please. So just to summarise the main changes and the clarifications in the guidance. So the guidance will clarify which regulatory submissions are subject to PIP and other paediatric requirements. There will be guidance on the appropriate timing of PIP submissions, and also when it's appropriate to request a compliance statement. It'll be explained how to submit the confirmation of class waiver requests via the PIP submission portal, which is a change from the 1st of January. We're also providing guidance on what we expect for where there is a paediatric plan from other regulators, what documents we expect to be provided as part of the UK PIP submission. And then there is a section in the PIP guidance specifically for category 2 products. Now, obviously, a majority of products where paediatric requirements apply are category 1 products, but where it is a category 2 product regulatory submission that is being planned, we will be providing advice on how to deal with the parallel requirements of the UK and the EU, and as far as possible to reduce the regulatory burden for applicants. So we'll be advising that where possible, the UK PIP and the EU PIP are aligned, and then when MHRA is doing the compliance check of the PIP, we will provide confirmation of equivalence of the UK and EU PIPs. And if we are able to provide this confirmation, then it will be optional for applicants to include the EU PIP in regulatory submissions. Next slide, please. Thank you. And I'm going to hand over to Peter Brown and Ian Jackson to talk about distribution and manufacturing.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So Ian Jackson speaking. So Peter will come on in a second and talk. So as Luke mentioned in the introduction, we've been reviewing the questions that have been submitted from previous engagement sessions. So we thank you for those. There were some common themes, so we grouped them, and there were some common themes there. So the good news really is that in the answers to the questions are pretty much all covered in the existing guidance. So if I can refer you to the guidance that has been published relatively recently, then hopefully you will find all the answers. But we've just summarised some of the questions today and provided some clarity. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So one of the key defining points in time is the cutover from the 31st of December 2024 to the 1st of January 2025 when the Windsor Framework kicks in. So to provide absolute clarity for QPs, and we are defining on the market, so products on the market are those batches which are QP certified before or after that date. So clearly anything QP certified after the 31st of December 24 will require the UK only labelling. Anything QP certified before that may, depending on where the artwork change has been made, they may not necessarily have the UK only labelling in place. So we have provided here some example scenarios. So please do take a look at those. I'm not proposing now to read through those examples, but these have been provided through to the trade associations. So we thank you for your engagement in that respect. And clearly, we're just making this point now. This is to provide clarity and allow certainty with regards to the implementation dates for the Windsor Framework. So specifically the UK only labelling. So hopefully that provides some clarity. If I take the next slide then, please. And just similarly some common questions and common themes then. So one is with regards the role of the QP and QP certification, and in particular with products moving in and through Northern Ireland. So just to clarify, so batches that are QP certified in the EU, the EEA, may continue to be supplied to Northern Ireland without the need for the RPI. So the RPI process was brought in as a result of EU exit, but that is not required for products entering if they are QP certified prior to entering the Northern Ireland market. And similarly, the trade agreement with the EU allows for QP certification to be performed in Northern Ireland, and that will be recognised by our EU counterparts. So those are existing arrangements, and they will continue. Some questions around the scope of the Windsor Framework. So we've had questions in particular about APIs and whether API containers need to include the UK only labelling on the containers or the labels. So that is not the case, and similarly, it is not the case for investigational medicinal products. So IMPs are out of scope also for the Windsor Framework. The Windsor Framework only applies to those authorized medicines, i.e. those with a product license number. And just to reiterate the point around export, so albeit that the products now on the market will have UK only labelling, but this does not mean that packs cannot be exported. So those packs can still be supplied to export markets, provided, of course, that it is legal to sell those in those markets that you're supplying. So the UK only label, and we've issued some notifications to our international partners to clarify the point that they may well still be supplied if they're happy to receive those products. And if we just move on to the next slide, please. And I think I'll let Pete take over at this point.
Great, thank you, Ian. My name is Peter Brown. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the expert GDP inspector. To continue on the theme of common questions that we've had in, I just wanted to reiterate the following points. There has been some question around how organisations may ensure that goods haven't been uploaded into FMD repositories. The short answer to that is that as the repository will no longer exist, it should be not possible for any UK organisations in order to do so. We're not asking organisations to prove a negative, but we do ask you to seek assurances from your suppliers where necessary that goods have not been uploaded onto any European medicines verification systems. If you do become aware of any circumstances where this may have happened in error for whatever reason, you are required to notify the MHRA and to cover up or obliterate the FMD code if it is compliant for whatever reason. Again, this is a measure of last resort. This should not be possible, but please do let us know if you do encounter a scenario where it has happened. With regards to the NIMAR list will remain in force. Although it will have less relevance following the implementation of the Windsor Framework. Eventually, there should be very few medicines left on that list as legacy packs move through the system. However, the legal framework will remain in force, so please do continue to monitor the NIMAR list and apply it to your operations as applicable. With regards to the responsible person for import and decommissioning, we expect organisations to work with their suppliers to ensure that any European goods have been decommissioned prior to import into Great Britain. We are aware that as you won't be able to verify this activity yourself, this does present some challenges. We are working with trade organisations at the moment to provide some general examples as to what might be considered to be sufficient evidence to maintain the hold on inspection as part of your RPI process for that export function to the UK. It is, of course, down to the national competent authorities in each territory you may be procuring from to enforce any of the EU legislation and laws with regards to decommissioning. But as Great Britain will be considered an export territory, those goods should be decommissioned prior to entering Great Britain. The final question with regards to unlicensed medicines being imported from the European Union, yes, this is acceptable under the supervision of an RP, and it may continue. As to if any EU livery medicines can be imported as unlicensed medicines, this will very much depend upon the context as to why it's being imported, for what purpose. If you do require to import any EU licensed medicines for an unlicensed purpose, you should continue to notify the MHRA for consideration. Next slide, please. That was everything from myself. I will now hand over to my colleague, Claire. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter and Ian. I think we're on the home straight now for the last piece of guidance to introduce to you today, and that's around the advertisement of medicines in the UK. And I'm Claire Tilstone and I head up the advertising team here at the MHRA. If I could have the next slide, please. I'm sure many of you today are familiar with the advertising requirements in the UK to introduce the changes that lie ahead from January next year. But if not, here are some background pointers to lead the way. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you've heard previously, the Windsor Framework introduces UK-wide authorisations into the UK, and as such, the vast majority of products will be able to be advertised UK-wide from January next year. We've also heard that there will continue to be very exceptional cases where there is only a licence in part of the UK. And in these exceptional cases, it follows that those products may only be advertised in the territory where they have the licence. And reasonable precautions must continue to be taken as required before to ensure that those particular advertisements do not appear in a territory where there is no licence in place. And the additional information requirements that are required on a statutory basis for the prescribing information for those products in those territories, the particular information continues to be required, and that's outlined in the blue guide. Have the next slide, please. The main advertising requirements going forward do relate to prescribing information in territories, but there are a few other smaller matters just to bring to your attention under the advertising requirements. Just to mention very briefly that provision of professional samples to healthcare professionals will need to be no larger than the smallest presentation that's available for sale in the UK or the part of the UK in those territories where the supply is made. And all other requirements in relation to professional samples remain unchanged. And in the very rare case that statutory action is being taken by the agency on behalf of ministers to make a judgment on the compatibility of an advertisement with the regulations, those minded to notices on behalf of ministers will continue to refer to the territory to which that notice relates. If I could have the next slide, please. Okay, so just to run through implementation aspects from January next year and has been explained by the medicines licensing team. It is the PLGB number and the EU number that we need to focus on for advertising in terms of amendments. So as you may be aware at the moment, UK-wide advertisements may list a combination of license numbers, and that will be the PLGB number for GB territory, together with an EU number for the Northern Ireland territory. And of course, from the 1st of January, the PLGB number is going to cover the license UK-wide, and the PLGB number will therefore cover the UK-wide advertisement. So from January, the EU license number does not apply to the territory of Northern Ireland anymore, and we would therefore expect that number to be phased out from UK advertisements over time. Now, we don't expect this to take place by or on the 1st of January, but we do request that the change is done at the earliest available opportunity to avoid any potential confusion. And we also ask that when any updates to prescribing information are being made, you take the opportunity to review the information, to amend or clarify any references to territories as may be appropriate, again to avoid any potential confusion. Companies who want to continue with a Europe-wide advertising campaign or print run can do so on their own responsibility, but it's really important for the UK to be the starting point from our point of view, to make sure that the advertising complies with the UK regulations i.e. that the material overall does not mislead a UK audience and complies with the UK SPC. And in line with keeping information up to date and your overall obligations in this regard, material that no longer complies should be withdrawn from use. And the next slide, please. I just wanted to touch on briefly divergence for that Europe-wide advertising campaign. And this has been mentioned earlier by Shirley in her discussion as well. But from an advertising point of view, for the avoidance of doubt, different product indications between the UK and other European territories would obviously not comply with the UK SPC from that perspective. So joint advertising across the continent would not be possible in those cases. Differing safety information between UK and other European territories is a little more nuanced, and it doesn't necessarily preclude Europe-wide advertising, but you'll need to take care to ensure that the safety of the UK public is not in any way compromised. And of course, just to note that we're obliged to consider any complaints made to us about the advertisement of medicines in the UK, and we do that by looking at each individual case and the facts available to us at the time. I think that concludes my slides for today and the introduction to the changes to advertising. So I'm going to hand back to Luke for a question and answer session. Thank you.
So the last thing to do is just to thank you for attending. As was mentioned earlier, if you are concerned about steps towards achieving compliance, please reach out to partnerships@mhra.gov.uk. For any other queries, please do email info@mhra.gov.uk. The guidance can be found at the link that is referenced within the slide and will be sent round after this webinar. So that concludes our second webinar. Thanks to everyone who's attended, and if I don't speak to you before, have a pleasant Halloween, festive period, and obviously Windsor Framework Implementation Day. Thank you very much.